Have you ever stopped to wonder how a deeply rooted historical faith actually adapts when the world around it just radically changes? I mean, how does ancient religion even survive when a modern, intellectual era suddenly pulls the rug right out from under it? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating concept in the history of ideas. We call it the theological pendulum swing. We're going to see how when religious thought gets pushed all the way to one extreme, it almost inevitably swings forcefully right back in the other direction.
The theological pendulum, from Wesley to liberalism. In this explainer, we're tracing a massive, and I mean absolutely impactful evolution in Christian theology. We're going to follow this pendulum as it swings from the wild, energetic revivals of the 18th century straight through to the major intellectual restructuring of the 19th and 20th centuries.
So, here's our roadmap for the journey. 1. Wesley's evangelical resurgence. 2. The German theological cauldron. 3. Schleiermacher and the elite. And 4. The pillars of Protestant liberalism. Basically, we're traversing from the muddy countryside of Britain all the way to the elite universities of Germany to map out this massive shift in human thinking.
Just to anchor us chronologically, let's lay out the major historical leaps we'll be covering. We're kicking things off in the 18th century with a huge burst of evangelical resurgence. Then, the 19th century brings this totally new wave of German liberal theology, which ends up colliding head-on with major scientific milestones like Darwin's Origin of Species in 1859. And finally, we'll see how all of this culminates in the 20th century with the social gospel. It's quite the ride.
All right, Section 1, Wesley's Evangelical Resurgence, Action and Heart.
You know, before the 18th century, church life for a lot of people had kind of become a flat line. People were baptized, they sat in the same pews for 50 years, and honestly, they learned very little about actual vibrant spiritual life. But John Wesley completely changed that with just a staggering level of action. 250,000. That is the number of miles Wesley rode on horseback during his lifetime just to wake the church up. Literally enough to circle the globe 10 times. He brought this vibrant, energetic renewal to the British church by preaching a doctrine he called perfect love. And get this, to make it all happen, he actually had a little desk built right onto his horse's saddle so he could study Greek and write letters while riding. I mean, talk about energetic, nonstop dedication.
Wesley was all about grounding abstract theology in practical action. He taught that perfect love wasn't about being some flawless, mistake-free human, but about being perfected in Christ. And how did that actually play out? Through active, relentless service to your neighbor. And when people ask, okay, well, who is my neighbor? Wesley said it was the poorest among you, the outcasts. He directly opposed the slave trade in England, proving that for him, theology meant rolling up your sleeves and actually helping the marginalized.
But hey, you know you're looking at a truly great theologian when they are acutely aware of the dangers of their own ideas. Wesley explicitly warned his followers against 3 big pitfalls. First up, the danger of pride. Basically, thinking your amazing religious experience makes you somehow better than everyone else. Second, the trap of salvation by works. You know, gritting your teeth and trying to earn God's love instead of just relying on grace. And third, ignoring other biblical doctrines by becoming way too myopic about just one single idea. And honestly, those are warnings that remain highly relevant to almost any modern religious or social movement we see today.
Moving right on to Section 2, the German theological cauldron, a recipe for explosion.
So as we move from 18th century Britain over to 19th century Germany, the pendulum really starts to swing. The pace shifts from a guy riding on horseback to something much more analytical and academic. In this era, you had 3 competing philosophical movements just bumping into each other. First, there was Lutheran scholasticism. People knew the doctrines perfectly, but it was completely void of life. It was knowledge without imagination. Then you had non-religious rationalism, which heavily de-emphasized the church and basically placed all its chips on human reason. And finally, you had pietism, which was a movement trying to counteract the deadness of the other two by insisting that true belief has to engage both the mind and the heart. So you've got these 3 huge ideas swirling together, basically creating a cauldron that was just waiting for a spark.
Which brings us to Section 3, Schleiermacher and the elite, ministering to the up and out.
That spark that finally ignited the German cauldron, that was Friedrich Schleiermacher. And his approach was a massive pivot from what we just saw with Wesley. While Wesley targeted the down and out, the poor, the helpless, Schleiermacher completely flipped the script and targeted the up and out. He specifically addressed a famous book to the cultured despisers of religion. He made it his absolute mission to minister to the wealthy, the influential, and the cultural elites of society who really thought they were just too smart or too modern for Christianity.
Friedrich Schleiermacher himself is widely known as the father of liberal theology. To really grasp his strategy, think about how faith intersects with high culture today. Take someone like Phil Smith, for example, the legendary principal trumpet for the New York Philharmonic. He rubs shoulders daily with the absolute greatest musicians and conductors in the world, bringing his faith to the very peak of cultural elites. Well, Schleiermacher was doing exactly that in 19th century Germany. He was trying to restate the faith in a way that would actually make sense to the cultural powerhouses of his day.
To truly understand Schleiermacher's historical weight, we just need to consider this quote from Karl Barth, who is widely considered the greatest theologian of the 20th century. Barth famously ranked Schleiermacher right up there alongside John Calvin, telling his PhD students that if you don't study Schleiermacher, you simply cannot understand modern theology. I mean, he literally turned the whole Christian ship around. But the real question is, how did he do it?
Well, the crucial point here is understanding this heavy German term, Gefühl. Schleiermacher argued that the essence of religion wasn't about memorizing rigid dogmas or dry doctrines. It was all about Gefühl, which he defined as the immediate apprehension of the infinite by the finite. Now, in plain English, that basically means your individual intuitive religious experience of God matters more than anything else. You don't necessarily need a priest, a church building, or even a book as an intermediary. You can intuitively experience God all by yourself.
All right, Section 4, Pillars of Protestant Liberalism, the Ripple Effects.
Following Schleiermacher's lead, a broader movement known as classical Protestant liberalism established 5 main pillars. First, it constantly reacted against rigid religious conservatism. Second, its main method was to restate the faith so it was intellectually acceptable to modern scientific minds. Third, it taught that you should value your own God-given reason over blind church authority. Fourth, and this was absolutely huge in the 1800s, it accepted all truth as God's truth. So when Darwin published his theories in 1859, liberal theologians just embraced scientific and historical criticism, seeing no real conflict with their faith. And fifth, perhaps most surprisingly, this movement heavily influenced both the right and left wings of the church. And that brings us to a beautiful irony of history. Liberalism's intense focus on the individual religious experience heavily influenced the conservative right's focus on personal revival. But on the flip side, it also birthed the left's social gospel movement. Theologians like Walter Rauschenbusch took that profound internal religious experience of Gefühl and applied it directly outward to community care and social justice. So the pendulum had literally swung from Wesley's action over to German intellectual experience and then right back to social action again. We've seen the theological pendulum swing wildly today, haven't we? From John Wesley's tireless horseback ministry for the marginalized, all the way into the deep analytical cauldrons of Germany with Schleiermacher's focus on internal experience, and then back out into the community with the social gospel. It's this constant dynamic tension between action, experience, and reason. So as this pendulum inevitably continues to swing today in our own rapidly changing world, I want to leave you with this thought. What will the next theological era look like? Thank you so much for checking out this explainer, and as always, keep questioning.